Nayanika, thank you for coming into our jungle.
Oh, this is the loveliest kind of jungle. Not like as lovely as the real jungles, but the second loveliest.
We are trying to recreate that here, but I think it's not so simple as you rightly say, because nature provides us with something which we can't replicate.
True. And sadly, we are losing it. So I'm really happy that you've come up with a way to re-engage children with nature through a board game.
Through the book that you have got here called Ambushed. I read it in one sitting, and I rarely do that with books.
Okay.
So, including my own book. So it's really an honor to have you here in our office. And what I liked about the book was it's got two things. One is it's light reading. Actually, three. It helps kids come back to reading, get back to the habit of reading. And thirdly, I think it conveys a message, a very strong message that we are losing the tigers and we need to do something about it. And most importantly, I can even add another point, which is, how everybody can get a second chance. So how, in this instance, a poacher can turn into a very good human being, given a chance, given the right opportunities. And I think that's the message that we need to kind of carry forward. And that's the one message that I think I really liked from, as a takeaway from the book. Right. Because for children also, when they grow up reading something, they love animals, they love reading. But I think most importantly, they need a message. So what made you come out with something like this?
So I think stories choose us. We don't choose stories that we write. So it was a picture of a tiger and a jailed Mugia poacher in the National Geographic that I saw about 3 years ago. And it haunted me. It was like those eyes were calling out to somebody to tell their story. They didn't have a voice. They were looking to anybody, someone, tell our story. And I started researching about poaching and stuff like that. As you said, we're also caught up in our own lives. Bigger house, bigger car, latest of everything. There's no end to it. And we forget that there's this whole world of nature around us dying under our watch. In the old days, it used to happen that, like 6 subspecies of tiger have almost gone, and it happened before there was internet, before we knew at the click of a finger that yes, this is happening around us. Now it would be a crying shame. We know, as you said, the slender loris, the tiger, every single animal species we are sort of just obliterating, losing, while we watch without seeing. And that to me is criminal. It is really sad. So my whole idea was, when I started reading about poaching, I was equally guilty as everyone I am talking about, of not really caring or not really making the time to care. When I started reading about this, I just felt I had to tell the story. And I wanted to tell it. I have daughters who are 12 and 14, and I wanted to tell it to the generation that is now going to inherit our world. And I didn't want it to be, I said, a heavy...
But how did you start getting into liking the tiger or getting into the forest, or what made you?
I had never seen a wild tiger till I wrote this.
Wow. And after you wrote or just before?
While I was writing.
While you were writing.
When I wrote my first draft, I had seen Valmik Thapar's program on the television. I had seen tigers in zoos, and I had tried to go once or twice to tiger reserve, seen tiger tracks, tiger tail, never tiger, wild tiger. And even when I wrote my first draft and I showed it to my daughters, and they said, "Mom, it's okay, but something is missing." And then we knew what was missing. We had never seen a wild tiger. So I called up Dr. Khandal, who was the gentleman who was sort of interviewed in the National Geographic, and I said, your article has inspired me to write a book, and I've nicely put you into my book as well as Raghu Rathore, like you have your Ranger Kutti. Yes, yeah. So I put you into my book as Raghu Rathore, and he must have thought I'm loony, because I'm just calling him from out of the blue and saying that I put you into my book. And I said, "May I take your permission to do this? I want to come to India and meet you." And he said, "Please come." He was gracious enough to have me. And in that trip, Dinesh, I saw the first 3 days no tigers in Ranthambore. But the third day, we saw this tigress and her cubs, and she had just given birth to these cubs maybe a few months ago. She had them in a shaded area. and she killed a sambar deer right in front of us.
Oh, wow.
And she took this
And
deer,
this is your first instance?
first ever. She carried the deer by its neck, almost her body weight, I would say, and she took it across the lake to where her children were, her cubs were. The same afternoon, maybe 15 minutes later, after this whole incident, we saw a sub-adult. He was 18 to 20 months at that time. His name was Sultan, on his back like a kitten, just defenseless. And there was a moment when our eyes met, and my daughters roll their eyes when I talk all these things, but I felt it was a moment of truth.
It does happen, because it's the same thing that I told very recently somewhere, that it's a whole lot of people who come together can create a movement to do something, to save a tiger or a species, but it's just that one invisible pull which actually makes these people come around, or makes that person lead something. Like how you said, that one probably instance of that eye contact, which is probably that invisible pull that made you say that, hey, yeah, this is what I must do. And then you have created a movement, which is people read this, people get inspired by it, they get probably excited by it, they also want to see a tiger, they want to do something for it, and that's something which I think is lovely, because I felt the same when I saw the slender loris for the first time.
Right.
When I photographed the slender loris, which I wanted to do for the last 10 years. I've been asking everybody to do that, and the first opportunity I got to photograph a slender loris, there was some connect that this is the animal that I've seen tigers in the wild, elephants, the lions and everything else, but when I saw this, I said, hey, there's something that we should do. And I think it was just stayed put, and for a year or two didn't do nothing much, but then all of a sudden things happen. So that's lovely, actually. I mean, that's...
And in that moment, I felt, okay, they've allowed me into their world. What can I do for them?
Correct.
And at that time, it was just a manuscript. I didn't even know if I would ever have it published. But I said, if it ever gets published, all the royalties should go to Tiger Watch, which is Dr. Khandal's NGO.
That's nice of you. Well, I mean, obviously, that's another thing that you have to do. See, it's not about the contribution; it's about the thought. How much contribution somebody makes is not what it should be evaluated by. But I think what the thought itself of doing that, and that itself, where when somebody buys a book, and if they know that something is going to Tiger Watch, which will help something else,
and educate,
and then effectively it will become a movement where the tiger finally gets saved for future generations to come. So that itself is a great thought. And it don't ever worry about how much is going as contribution, but the little thought itself is good enough.
As you said, touching children's lives through games, reconnecting. People are just so caught up in virtual worlds. iPads, and the parents are equally to blame. We will not sit with the child and play.
Absolutely.
So this is fabulous. I mean, when Ganesh and you sent me the game, and I opened it and I played it with my children, and it was quality time we hadn't spent.
Absolutely, because that's when you start learning, you start you start
bonding,
you start fighting, you do everything.
And my mother joined in, because otherwise she's apprehensive to join in. As we were talking earlier, she feels she can't join in and
relate to the new generation,
on a console and things like that. So it was so lovely to have this moment. Whatever.
When we thought about creating the board game, our one single thought in mind was that we need to bring people around the table.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, we are also primates, and we are social animals. Okay, we are very social, but then that's becoming a little, very... It's getting apart, and each one has their own screen to themselves, and they're just looking at it all the time. No eye contact, no high fives, and all that is gone a little bit. And so I thought we'll just put everybody around a table. It could be the grandparents and the grandkids, just families, just friends. Maybe on a rainy day, they don't know. Instead of just sitting on an iPad, why don't they sit in the corridors of an apartment complex or whatever and play? That's exactly how we started this. And slowly we also thought that one of the things that we could do is two things that attract kids to anything is games and animals.
Right.
Because game is natural.
Right.
It is natural to a human being to play. So we said, okay, play is one. And then animals. You're always attracted by an
Always,
animal.
yeah.
And we always, any kid or anybody you ask, they'll always have a favorite animal.
Correct. Yeah.
So that favorite animal could be anything. It could just be a small pigeon, it could be a sparrow, it could be a crow, it could be anything, but spider maybe.
Yeah.
But the whole thing is, we said these two will connect a kid very
Right.
quickly. And that's what actually brought us together to do that. And secondly, what we also wanted to do was, with all my experience over the last 10, 15 years of going to forest, taking pictures and all that, we said we should also try and educate while they play a game. Although education is not the only criteria for
Right.
for
it has
this.
to be slid
Slid
in,
in.
very gently, without them knowing
And
what we're
because the fun element has to be
Yes,
there.
it
So
has to be
and
fun.
games bring in the fun.
Yes.
And then you bring in a little bit of education,
Yes.
and hopefully you ignite some passion.
Absolutely.
And that's all we were thinking
That's
about.
all. And when you've touched it, that for me makes my journey worthwhile. Like in London, we did it at a school, a session about ambushed. And like you're saying, the children got so passionate about what was happening to the tiger. They did a sponsored read and they raised £4,000, which has gone to that school. So it's just igniting that little spark in a child. Instead of it coming from Subway Surfer or Temple Run, they have so much passion inside them. It's just being wrongly channeled. It needs to be rechanneled, reconnected into the right plug points.
And how do you think that can be done over the next, let's say?
It needs a movement. It needs champions like you and yes, it needs an army of young.
What is possible, but I guess at some point you also hit a wall, right?
Yeah.
I mean, in these kind of things, because how do you overcome these?
And today the world is visual, audio visual. So these things are again losing out because everybody wants audio-visual stimulation.
Yeah.
So how many people are reading and playing? We are competing with so much stimulation.
Eye-catchetry.
Exactly. So now I had to make a book trailer for this, just to get them to see the book trailer to.
Oh really? Do you
watch
have
the
a
book.
trailer on this?
Yeah.
Wow. We do the same thing, because when we did this Jungle Patrol, it looked like it was a big electronic game, but
Absolutely.
it was not. So same thing, yeah.
So, but that's the way. I think we just need more champions, more people to. Maybe we should do a movie on this. And
I think we should.
Yeah.
We've been talking about internally, also trying to see whether we can do an animated movie or a real movie or whatever. But I think at some point in time, yes, a short film will help actually. There's a lot of people want to just connect, like you said, on the audio visual medium rather than just reading out today.
Correct.
So maybe that's a way to go. Ambush was your first
book, and then the second book, I was told by many children, write a sequel to Ambush, but Genghis Khan came into my brain, conquered the territory and said, I want a book about me, no tigers, and I didn't want to mess with him, so I wrote about him. And also my daughters are growing up in London, didn't know much about Asian history, and I wanted to give them a little bit of fun. I want everything, learning should not be boring. They have enough.
Learning should always be fun.
Always be fun.
That's
and
why
you
I said
should
learning through games is awesome.
games, absolutely, yeah.
Maybe you should convert that into a game.
This would be a great game. In fact, it's written with rap songs because he was illiterate.
Yeah.
So he used to communicate his commands to his soldiers via rhyme.
Oh.
So it's got rap songs. It's written in the
Let's try and do that.
Yeah,
See if we can put together a game for it.
It'll be great fun. And because he's so interesting as a person.
Yeah, of course.
He's so controversial. People think he's bloodthirsty, and he was a far-sighted leader.
Yeah.
He united Asia and Europe into one empire, and a great guy. I'm very much for rewriting history and telling it from our point of view. Because I think Europeans have had their fill of writing their history.
And it's good to have light reading and that kind of material, because it's not filled with scientific data, and it's not like a journal. It doesn't read like a absolute journal where you try to do research after that.
Yeah.
That's a nice way, but you're going to be completely going away from this wildlife or nature, or something's going to pull you back?
That's in my heart. That's always going to be there.
That's good. That's good. So next time we could do something about elephants and
Of course, I would love
maybe
to.
the rhinos and.
In fact, we were in Kenya last year, and the rhino is I think how many left now?
Very few, 3,000 I think.
Yeah.
Or 1,400 or 1,500 of the black rhinos and
Black
about
rhino.
3 or 6,000 of the white rhinos.
Yeah, and some
From 60,000,
Correct.
68,000 or what.
So it was really heartbreaking. So My daughters were like, please write about the rhino now. I'm like, okay.
Actually, you should. What do you think of the impact of so many tourists going into it? Is it good or bad?
You would know more about that part.
No, actually, yeah. In India, what's happened is there's a lot of pressure on tourism. The good part is that only 20% of the entire forest is allocated for tourists. But then, what's happening is the pressure, especially also VIP pressure. There's a lot of pressures in India, and that's and the most important thing I feel that probably the officials will have to look at is to create a separate tourism wing. Where the forest, see what is happening now is the actual forest staff who are there to protect wildlife have now been also managing tourism, which I think is a problem because they are devoting this entire time that they're supposed to do whatever they were supposed to do into something else. So instead of that, they should actually focus on the protection, and then the tourism has to be done in a proper regulated manner. Although in parts of India it's kind of well regulated. Somewhat better in a different way. Some of them feel that we don't get full due for our money that is going into what we pay for visiting a national park or a tiger reserve in South. They don't get the actual they don't get their paisa vasool or whatever. But then but then that's not the only thing, right? I mean,
absolutely.
And the other thing that we also need to do here is a lot of people are only focusing on the tiger and the large charismatic animals.
Much more in the forest.
People are not even looking at an elephant, understanding an elephant's behavior, or a rhino and a rhino's behavior, or a leopard or any other animal. It's just the big cats, or maybe nothing.
Right.
So when some people come out of a park after a drive, and you ask them what about the sambar and the deer and the langoors and maybe the crocodiles and the bird life and nothing.
Absolutely.
So people are, that's I think something which we need to take our focus out on, the mindset, and it will take time. It's important that we save the tiger because that helps save the forest itself, the complete and the whole food chain. But I guess it's also
every single creature needs that.
Yeah, it needs, and a lot of creatures, like especially like our wolf and bustards and the loris and some of them, like the otters and the civets. These are things which get completely washed out and wiped out. And also grasslands and wetlands are looked at. Wetlands, of course, are probably even looked at as wasteland in India, and grassland is looked at as agricultural land. So it's easy to clear it. And then agricultural fields. So what happens to the grassland birds? The ecosystem is completely messed up today. So I think we need to look at that part. So there's a lot of challenge, I think. But I guess we need to do it in a sustained manner because we're chasing GDP.
Correct.
That's something. But I guess a lot of things will is in our hands. As citizens, as probably businessmen, as photographers, as writers, as authors, or actors. It's not just the scientist or the conservationist who needs to. It's your problem. Or the forest department and say it's our problem. I think as responsible citizens, it's our problem. And I think what you have done with Ambushed is a fantastic thing. And what we are trying.
And likewise with all your games.
Because we want to bring that element out. Two things: the social element where people sit around the table and play. Second is to bring in some amount of excitement that there is. And one thing I always keep telling people that we are part of nature and we have forgotten about it.
Yeah. And we're going to be the sufferers because nature will carry on.
Humans think that we are not part of nature. Nature is something else.
Something else.
We have to go there. We have to go there and experience. No,
it's here.
Yeah, part of it.
Yeah.
So we're trying to bring that message across. In the process, if we can save a species or if we can educate 1 million people or whatever, we have done our
jobs. Absolutely. And to remind them that the real world has so much magic and thrills, and our summer holidays used to be just no Wi-Fi and just going out and and to get that. And in Ambush, like how Tara, this city girl from Mumbai, and then she's
wants to have an iPad, wants to have a TV program,
wants to go to Disney World or whatever. Then she finds herself in a forest which is much far more exciting than any game or any Disney
Because
World.
it's more natural, right? It's not man-made.
Yeah.
It's,
Just reconnecting, as you said, with all the joys of nature.
that's nice. So it was lovely talking to you.
Lovely
I hope
speaking
come
with
back
you,
and,
Dinesh.
we can spend more time and do more books and games.
Absolutely.
And convert your books to games and
Games to
convert our
books
games to
and
books
everything.
maybe some films too.
Absolutely.
And if you can work on getting out a film on Ambooked, I think
That would be phenomenal.
probably we'll think about it. Let's see how to put that together. We'll do something.
Perfect.
Thank you so much.
Lovely.
It was
Lovely
having
having
There's,
meet you.
one small little request. We want one autographed version of.
Oh dear. Okay, I'm honored.
When you require it, let's see.
Thank you so
You
much.
can write it to the entire Kaadoo team.
Okay.
So whatever you wish to.